Hi, I'm Sarah Singer again. In this class session, we're going to talk about organizational approaches for addressing quality challenges. My objective is to explain how organizational approaches work in order for you to be able to apply them in an organization. Before describing these approaches, let's ground our discussion by recognizing some of the major quality challenges that our healthcare system needs to address. These include improving quality, preventing medical errors, or at least addressing them once they occur, reducing unwarranted variation in procedure use, integrating patient care across professionals, across organizations, and over time, and increasing throughput and generally making systems more efficient. These challenges stem from several sources that make them really difficult to resolve. First, healthcare delivery is inherently complex because people and illness are complicated. Second, medical innovations that have extended life have also shifted patient needs from acute to chronic conditions, which require long-term management, not necessarily just cure. So third, the organizational and regulatory environment often makes providing integrated, reliable, and efficient care really difficult. The environmental factors I have in mind are things like clinical silos that separate providers of different disciplines, and payment incentives that make people less willing or able to do the right thing. There are several schools of thought about how best to improve quality. Thankfully, since the series of Institute of Medicine reports over a decade ago, there's been increasing recognition of the need to move beyond traditional approaches of blaming and training professionals. Approaches that recognize that problems are caused by systems, not individuals, include technical solutions like electronic medical records that enable practitioners who serve the same patients to share their medical records, and personnel solutions like case managers who help individual patients navigate the complex systems, and process solutions like evidence-based care bundles that focus on improving around particular issues. I and others have argued, though, that these solutions, while important, are incomplete, that we also need to focus on cultural solutions. By that I mean those that foster interpersonal risk-taking, that promote experimentation, reflection, teamwork, learning, and ultimately performance improvement. Since we're going to talk about cultural solutions, I need to define two related terms, culture and climate. These are often used interchangeably, but they're not really the same thing. On the one hand, you have culture. Culture refers to the deep, underlying, shared values, shared attitudes, and shared patterns of behavior in a group or organization. Culture refers to what the organization values and rewards relative to other potential competing priorities. Culture is the fundamental orientation of the organization. On the other hand, there's climate. Climate refers to shared perceptions of existing policies, procedures, and practices. It's expressions of relative value as demonstrated through observable acts and artifacts. Climate refers to surface features of a culture. In other words, climate is more easily changed than culture, which can take many years to perform. This is a framework I developed to help explain how climate and culture relate to each other and how they impact performance. It suggests that culture has three parts and that together they form a cycle that can impact performance. First, enabling a culture. Enabling a culture refers to actions that motivate the pursuit of an outcome. Climate then refers to the superficial things that frontline workers see. It's how they interpret leader actions and organizational practices. Given frontline workers' perceptions, they will then enact a culture. Enacting a culture means that they'll take action to improve performance. And these actions will ultimately impact outcomes. And last is elaborating a culture. Elaborating a culture refers to learning practices through which organizations extend desired behaviors. And these three elements join together in a cycle through which culture and climate impact outcomes. The framework provides several key insights about addressing quality challenges. First, we need leaders and leadership to fuel this cycle. Culture needs, in other words, to be enabled. Second, isolated interventions are unlikely to reduce underlying causes of performance. Instead, improving performance requires systemic interventions, or at least combinations of interventions that enable, enact, and elaborate a desired culture. Our framework also implies that enabling, enacting, and elaborating should continue iteratively because building culture is an evolutionary process according to this framework. Third, not all interventions will be useful and appropriate in all settings. Organizations may be at different stages in their evolution. and interventions should fit and build on an existing culture, wherever they are in their cycle of improvement. Last, all interventions require attention to implementation in order to achieve that connection that we so desire between enactment and outcomes. By establishing policies and rewards and showing support for frontline initiatives, leaders can motivate and enable frontline workers and managers to undertake efforts to enact, for example, teamwork across disciplines and units. If successfully implemented, new behaviors will have an impact on the kinds of major quality challenges that I began this presentation talking about. By providing learning opportunities, organizations can elaborate initiatives that work. Through these actions, culture changes over time and the cycle continues. I'll conclude with an example. Julie Morath at Children's Hospital and Clinics of Minnesota, still one of my favorite stories. Her vision was to radically improve patient safety at her hospital. Shortly after becoming hospital chief operating officer, she launched a comprehensive patient safety initiative. She supported that initiative for organizational transformation through personal emphasis and by changing over time multiple reinforcing systems and processes to stimulate learning and improvement. She introduced, for example, a blameless reporting system so that errors and concerns could be reported by frontline workers without concern about being blamed for those challenges. She paired that with a new disclosure policy to show that she was serious about creating a blameless environment, both internally and externally. She initiated both proactive and reactive mechanisms for understanding and correcting problems in the organization. She also cultivated leaders at every level of the organization and across all departments. She involved frontline clinicians in the improvement effort, and they worked to help spread the initiative and to build on what worked. As a result, the hospital improved, and it continues to outperform children's hospitals on mortality, readmissions, and other measures of quality. Can we all be the next Julie Morath? Maybe not. But can each of us impact our organization's culture? Absolutely, and please do. Good luck, and thanks for listening.